Welcome to the Employment Wednesday podcast with Yvonne Shabangu. Have you heard of the scripture Hosea 4 verse 6? My people perish because of the lack of knowledge. The same applies to your career. When you don't know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, you are likely to make wrong career choices. But worry not. Employment Wednesdays is here for you to offer you all the answers relating to your career and offer you strategies to develop your career. Enjoy. So there is a presumption that lawyers make so much money. Some say it depends on the area of practice, and some say it takes longer. Today we will find out what the reality is. I'm your host, Yvonne Shabangu. Welcome to another episode of Law Without Borders. We are going to start off with our shout outs. The first shout out goes to Libone Matlake, and she says, or he says, I love your channel, keep going. And she also used super thanks, so don't forget to use super thanks, guys. Make sure that you're using that option. It helps us grow the channel and come back for another season. And then we have another shout out to the Simple Bouquet, and she says, Yvonne standing on business, my fave yours, love her. The timing is timing. The guest is guesting. The host is hosting. I love your work, Yvonne, and hearts. And then we're going to go into our fun facts. So I found out today, I hope this is correct, because sometimes AI is misleading. What is the motto of the University of Limpopo?
Better Africa or something.
Okay, it's along those lines.
Yeah.
Anywho, fun fact, the motto of the University of Limpopo is finding solutions for Africa. I guess that's why we have the type of guest we have today. It makes sense why he would have studied there. And then the 13th of June was Men's Mental Health Awareness Day. And throughout the month of June, it is Men's Mental Health Month, and it is also the Youth Month. And then today I was scrolling on TikTok. I bumped into a news clip that stipulated, apparently, allegedly, there has been an increase of illegal alcohol market, right, in South Africa, and approximately 22% of it, which makes up to 25 billion of our GDP. So basically, I'm saying, guys, stay safe, because apparently there's a lot of alcohol that is not supposed to be consumed. So illegal markets create their own alcohol outside of the initial manufacturer. So make sure that you're checking the labels of whatever you're drinking. Be mindful and conscious of what goes into your mouth. Read the labels of your drinks. And today we are seated with Juniors Moremi, an LLB graduate from the University of Limpopo. And he also has, he furthers his studies at the University of Wits, acquiring an advanced certificate in company law. And then he's an admitted attorney specializing in corporate and commercial law and majors in acquisitions and banking and finance. And he is founder of Employ a Lawyer, an initiative that assists lawyers with securing employment. Basically, graduates securing employment. Make sure that you follow them on all social media platforms if you don't already follow them. Welcome, and thank you for honoring my invite.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be invited to your platform.
Love that. Do you remember the DM I sent you in 2021?
You sent me a DM in 2021? On which platform?
On Instagram.
No.
So I don't know if it was you handling the page at the time.
It was.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I sent you a DM. I was reading them today. I'm like, what a full circle moment. I sent you a DM and I felt like I was so immature. I sent it. I'm like, hey, it's Yvonne Shabangu. I have an initiative, Employment Wednesdays. We go live every Wednesday. I'd like to do a live with you. And then you send me the terms and conditions. And one of the conditions was that you didn't want to show your face and you wanted to keep it blank. Why has that changed? Finally, we see the face.
So initially, right, I just wanted to be about, the vision of Employ a Lawyer. Like, I didn't want it to matter who's behind it.
Okay.
Whether it's one person, whether it's 50 people. Like, it should be like a movement. How a movement goes on, whether one person is missing or not.
Yeah.
So that's how it was initially. And then it got to a point where we wanted to start doing Instagram lives. You can't do an Instagram live without being in the live. So eventually, I had to show my face.
Okay.
And it was a debate with the team to say, someone has to do it. Who has to do it? And then eventually we did it. And then I think I declined podcasts for the longest
Why?
time. This is my first podcast.
Oh, I
by the way.
love that. I'm so special.
I've never done one before. I've always been someone who wanted to be behind the scenes. I didn't want to take credit in my own name because it's not my own efforts. It's a team effort.
Okay.
Employer lawyer is a team effort. And,
Okay.
you know, but unfortunately, at the end of the day, someone has
to show face.
Yeah,
Somebody
so-
has to sit at the table.
So yeah, you know, after a couple of hours of debate, I agreed to come and
Okay.
show face.
I love that. Thank you so much for honoring my invite.
Of
We
course.
are going to go into icebreakers. Which drink best describes your personality?
I think Sprite.
Why?
You know how the whole sugar and salt thing, when you look at them from a distance, you can't tell which is which until you actually taste them. Sprite is the same. You can't tell whether it's water or Sprite
Sparkling
you know,
water.
until you actually hear that. And
Okay.
you're like, okay, it's not water. It's probably flavored water or sparkling water. But once you drink it, you realize, oh, it's Sprite.
Okay.
So, I'd like
So
to
you're
think-
also that person.
Yeah, you can misjudge me from a distance.
Okay.
But once you get to know me closer, you'll realize, he's not that bad.
Yeah. That's actually what I came to realize. I remember when I asked a friend of mine, I'm like, hey, friend, I want to ask him to come to my podcast. And then my friend was like, oh, he's a nice person. Just hit him up. I'm like, are you for real? Okay. And then if you had a superpower, what superpower would it be and why?
Oh. I think being able to read people's minds.
Clearly today
And
is
not
that
for the
day.
bad reasons.
Okay,
like for good
why though?
reasons. The world is a very harsh place, a cruel place. And you never know how to treat someone because you don't know what they're going through. You know? So if I was to able to read each and everyone's mind, I'd be able to tread lightly whenever I speak to them. You know?
Okay.
Even if I'm trying to be funny, hey. Like, oops, no, they're having a bad day.
Not the time.
Not today.
Yeah.
Let's do it another day.
Okay.
You know.
Love that. And then which song can you sing word for word?
Ooh. Rick Ross, Money Dance.
Oh, give us a
Ah,
stanza. there.
not doing that. I think I sing it by myself, or
In
if
the
the
shower.
music is overshadowing my voice.
Okay.
I can't sing. I can't
Okay.
even rap. But
What do you do when we're there singing the national anthem, Sister Bettina?
that one is different. You just go with the flow. You go with the crowd. You do what they do. As long as I'm not holding the mic singing, that's okay.
Okay, that's fine. We're going to go into your high school life. Like, how was high school for you?
High school was nice. I'm an introvert. I never.
You introvert?
You see, this is what I mean when I say Sprite.
Okay.
Understand what I mean when I say Sprite?
Okay.
So, but yeah, I think I get comfortable once, you start engaging with people. But yeah, for the longest time, I was an introvert.
Yeah.
High school for me was very nice. I can't complain. I wasn't a popular kid. I think I'd like to think I was a smart kid-ish
Okay.
for most of the years.
Smart
Yeah, I
people are very
wasn't-
modest. They can never fully admit, like, I was smart.
I always tell people I'm not smart. I'm a hard worker.
Okay.
Sometimes people can't tell the difference.
Yeah, that's true.
When you produce results, they say, oh, he's smart. But it's just hard work.
Okay, I love that. And do you have any highlights from high school? The stories you would tell your grandchildren about your high school, like
Yes,
one story.
actually.
Yeah.
This happened in grade 8 and 9. So my high school had this thing where every year they would do like awards for the top performing learners.
Yeah.
So this one time they do them like towards the end of the year. So this one time they were having awards and they do it grade by grade. We were in grade 8 at the time. First year there, a friend of mine, we were from the same primary school, we went to the same high school. So when we got there, we were still friends, of course, hanging around the same people. And then come the time when they were giving awards and stuff. So they were calling names. Okay, grade 8, we had different classes, but they all grouped them together like overall grade 8. So they would call names. So they called him. for a few subjects. I think it was like 2 or 3 subjects. And it was back to back.
You okay?
After that, they called my name as well. So, and as I was about to go sit down, they called me again. So then I was about to sit again. I was like, let me just stand here and see how far this can go.
Yeah.
You know, and it pushed on to a point where you find that him and I were the top performing students or learners within the class. It was actually nice. Everywhere I go, I always hear that thing. People's like, oh, Juniors Moremi 1, Juniors Moremi 2,
2, 3, 4, and it goes on and
so
on.
now, and then people start saying, no, that guy is smart, that guy is smart. But yeah, that didn't really last long because once you get to higher grades, you start being comfortable. But grade 8 and 9, it happened that way. And, you know, it was a really big highlight for my high school, I'd say.
Nice. You mentioned a very important point that at some point we get comfortable. What did that moment, obviously your results possibly dropped or something happened, they're no longer as great as they were. What did that teach you about the importance of having a good work ethic or the importance of rather working hard?
I think most people get comfortable in the sense that you think, okay, I'm at the top and there's no one who can go above me. You know? But then the people who are below you or who you beat to that position are like, what do I need to do to get there?
Yeah.
And then they start working harder. You keep on the same level, consistent as it is. You don't put on more effort because you feel like even next year it's going to be the same, you know. But they put on twice the work and then, you know, they start overtaking you and whatnot. I think that's how people get comfortable. It's hard being consistent when people around you are not pushing you to be consistent or get to that level. I think when we started doing grade 10, everyone was doing streams. Some were doing science, some were doing accounting, some were doing accounting and whatnot. And then you start, you know, getting to learn new things. But at the same time, you get to become comfortable enough. Like, no, you know, when I grow up, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to be this and that. And then now you start focusing, like, hello. The most important subject is English. I need to do well in English. The rest, I think I'm fine, you know, if I can just keep it there to 60s and whatnot. So you're not pushing as much as you were in the beginning, because in the beginning you were trying to impress. Because you just arrived here at high school, you're trying to show that I can do this, I'm capable. But once you start settling in, you know, you get comfortable and it becomes very tricky to be consistent.
Now I hear that when you speak of not having, not being in an environment that pushes you to work harder or to push harder. I was scrolling on TikTok again, where I saw the Comrades marathon videos, right? And then somebody was like, the reason why Gerda keeps winning is because she has no competition. So people were encouraging each other about, we can do this in 4 hours. But then when you think about it, you think about the amount of dedication it takes, you know, it's not just anybody that can do it, right? And I think sometimes we become so familiar with success that we think it's an easy go, easy come. But sometimes to maintain it, actually, to keep it, you have to work 3 times harder, actually, you know, because like you said earlier on, somebody who is doing less than you could be asking themselves the right questions to say, how do I get to where he is or where she is? And when they get there, they start thinking about surpassing you, you know, so yeah, it is quite important to have a good environment that induces you to want to do better and increases your appetite for growth and excellence. What did you want to be in high school?
I think I've always wanted to be a lawyer. But,
For real?
My mom didn't want that.
What did your mom want for you? That's a
From,
first.
you know, I grew up in a Christian family and, you know, they believe lawyers are liars, lawyers are...
Are you for real? So your family was like proper Christian, like...
Yeah, because not everyone is informed about these things, you know. All we hear about when you grow up is criminal lawyers, is that you commit a crime, your lawyer goes to court and they lie and say you didn't commit the crime and then you're free to go. That's just it. You know, there's no bigger picture of how it works because, you know, in certain communities, we don't have those initiatives that educate, you know, the public about how does the law work? You know, how does RAF work? How does unlawful arrest work and so on? So... you know, we also didn't have that. So, unfortunately, I didn't apply for law from the get-go.
What did you apply for?
I applied for engineering.
Oh, okay.
I studied engineering for 2 years before
Are you for real?
before I switched to law. And,
Okay, where did you
know,
study
I
engineering?
studied UJ.
UJ. You have some tea for days. So you apply for engineering.
Yeah.
Was that your mom's suggestion?
No, so it was like my second choice.
Okay.
My first choice was law. My second choice was engineering. If I wasn't going to be a lawyer, I was like, okay, let me be an engineer. Maybe they'll be okay with that. They were okay with that.
Okay.
And I studied engineering for 2 years. After that, I called it quits. I was tired.
And why did you call it quits? How was that 2 years
Because
of
it wasn't
engineering?
something I wanted to do.
Okay.
I think it was okay for me. The first year was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Second year started becoming tricky because you don't have that drive or passion for it. Your heart is still there by law.
Yeah.
So now, you kind of have to have the hard conversation with your parents. Say, look, I can't do this anymore.
And how did that conversation go? And what was it like? Did you call them? Did you say, I'm coming home? Guys, have a seat. Let's have some coffee.
I tried speaking to my mom, but she wasn't for it. But I kind of drove my sister into it, to push the whole thing. It's either, I come back or I switch to law, which one is it? Obviously, not one's going to allow their child to just come back home.
Sure.
And then eventually I applied at University of Limpopo and at UJ as well, because it was easier to just switch internally, but it took longer.
Yeah.
And at the time I was convinced, come home, Limpopo's closer to home. I'm from Limpopo. So it was like University of Limpopo is closer to home. It's not like Joburg where it's far, we don't see you often. And I was like, okay, let's go back to Limpopo.
Okay.
And eventually I went back to Limpopo.
Do you think high school prepared you well enough for university?
I'd say no.
Okay.
And this is because for me personally, where I come from, we only have 2 universities in the province, and they are like far apart from each other. Not more than 2, but 2 that you can study law. On my preferences, University of Limpopo, University of Venda, the TUT and other colleges, but for me, those are the ones that offered law. And there weren't really enough initiatives from universities to say, or in the community, to say, this is how you prepare law for university. Some people, if you come this side, people do initiatives where they go to local high schools and they help them with applying. They tell them this is how you apply. Applying at these universities online is free. Application fee for theirs this much. We didn't have that. We just relied on people who went to university before us. You'd call, hey man, how do I apply at this university? How do I do this? How do I do that? So they advised us, but within the high school, I don't think there was enough information to say, by the way, this and this is happening, this and this is happening. And even in the community, we had lawyers who are RAF lawyers, criminal lawyers and whatnot, but they never took the initiative to say, let me go to that high school and just speak to these kids,
share.
Just tell them my experience, Not even a doctor came like to our school to, give us that pep talk. So when you get there, everything is just new. You're learning everything from scratch. You learn that, hey, I can bunk classes, So when those things happen, it's a new reality check, because now you're like, hey, if I mess up here, there's no going back, especially if you realize that, either you have a bursary, you have NSFAS, or your parents are paying for your fees. You'll be wasting money and time in the process. But to be fair, I don't think it did for me.
Okay. So you did your engineering at UJ, right? And then obviously you had to go back home to the University of Limpopo, right? And my understanding, you correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that the University of Limpopo is situated more like in a village. Is it town?
Like a township.
Oh, township, right? And then whilst UJ is situated in a different location, obviously compared to the University of Limpopo, how was the transition back into that system like for you? And also the transition from, yes, you didn't love engineering, but obviously you may have been accustomed to certain learning methods. within that 2 years, how was the transition moving from UJ to the University of Limpopo, and then also transitioning from engineering into law?
Oh, okay. I think at first when I got there, I was like, where are the tall buildings? But then again, that was just a joke because I'm from Limpopo. I know very well, that there aren't any tall buildings like that around. But it was a different feeling, and a different adjustment, They always say that city life is fast life. It's fast paced. Everything moves fast. And when you get there, not that everything doesn't move fast. It's just a different setup. You don't have people running around, to work and whatnot because it's not in the city per se. Yeah, and that was a different adjustment for me. We're like, okay, things are kind of slow here. I don't have to look over my shoulder like I'm at CBD and someone's going to rob me or something like that, So it was a different setup. But in terms of adjusting or transitioning from engineering to law, for me, I feel like principles are the same. Studying for one thing is the same as studying for another thing.
Yeah.
The way you plan, the way you align your work or put your timetables, the kind of people you want to be around to push you to study is more or less the same.
Yeah.
For me, I was happy because I'm like, this is what I wanted. Like I'm doing what I wanted.
Okay.
So it's every lesson or every lecture came with yes, yes, type of thing. And for me, I was happy, and I think I adjusted very well because it wasn't a first-hand experience for me.
Okay.
Some people were there like, how does the portal work? How do I check my results? How do we check the timetable? How do you already know those things?
Yeah.
For me, it was like, another day. Oh, another one. Another. And like, oh, supplementary list. What's that? I already know those things.
I remember the first time somebody asked me, have you checked if you have a SAP? I'm like, what's a SAP?
So I was very accustomed with those things already. So for me, everything came easy.
Okay. And what was your university highlight?
Oh, I don't know. I think I was a mentor in university. It wasn't academic related. I wasn't a top student, so I'm not going to say, well, I got an award. I didn't get those. I think it was, I was a mentor. So I had a group of mentees who I was mentoring in my third year. And, we would have like weekly sessions where we'd go through modules that they're doing, how to do them, how to study, how to prepare this, a few quizzes here and there. I think once it was my birthday. So I got used to the fact that my birthday is in May and at University of Limpopo, May is exam season. So whenever it's my birthday, I know it's exam season. I'm writing, I'm not even going to celebrate my birthday. First year, second year went by, I didn't celebrate it. The third year, one of them was like, look, man, one of my friends was like, look, man, I need you to assist me with something. I have like this chapter I'm looking at in this module. I need you to look at it. I was like, okay, cool. So he's like, we'll go to my place. So we go to it. So when we go to his place, so we get there. I'm just standing outside though. It's a race. We're standing outside the door. He unlocks. So I'm just standing outside. I hear surprise. So I'm just standing there. I'm like, hey, what's going on here? It's his room. Why would they be saying surprise to me,
Yeah.
And then he's pointing. He's like, I'm like, what's going on? So when I pop my head in, I'm like, ow. These are my mentees. What's going on? So they threw me a surprise birthday. It was so cute.
That's so beautiful and very thoughtful.
That would be the highlight of my university days, And
Okay. And when you chose law, since you've always wanted to be a lawyer since a child, did you know your career options that you had with a law degree, or you were just planning to figure it out?
I knew attorney and advocate. That's it. And prosecutor. I think I knew prosecutor in my first year. After that, that's when, we start doing your introduction to South African law. They tell you the different types of careers you can pursue with the law degree. But before that, I didn't have anyone to tell me what else I can do outside of
you had no one who told you how you can be a legal advisor and work from home.
No, I didn't get a mentor until I actually graduated.
Okay. Yeah. So how did you get to the decision of pursuing the attorney route, given you knew about being an advocate and possibly a prosecutor?
I think it was in my third year. I was part of the BLA student chapter.
Okay.
So this one time they had like a career day. They brought these law firms to come and speak to us. I'm like, okay, these guys look cool. Where are they from? Like, no, they're from one of the big fives. Okay, wearing a suit. They look sharp. You know, what are they? Like attorneys. Maybe I should do that.
Yeah.
At that time, I was like, no, he looks good in a suit. The rest we'll figure it out later, you know. We didn't even know about law school until my final year.
Yeah.
That you have to go to law school.
At least you figured out in final year. I found out like first week of articles, like, hey, you have to do PLT. I'm like, what is PLT? What is? And they're like, yeah, even board exams. I'm like, what are those? I thought I'm done with exams. I just want to be a lawyer.
For me, I think being part of these structures on campus came in very handy.
Yeah.
Because you get guys who graduated, come back and say, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing law school. And you ask, what's law school? The only law school I know is that building there on campus, you know, but like, no, there's another one. You know, you do, it's like, at the time, I think it was 6 months, 4 months.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're like, oh, okay, you do that. And then you hear about boards. Boards? What are boards? Like, oh, okay, those are boards. And you hear about articles. You hear about, you know, pupillage. Pupillage, what's pupillage? And you start hearing people complaining about, I don't want that.
Yeah.
Let's stick here. So I stuck to the attorney route for me. So, yeah.
And how did you secure articles? How was the process like?
It's funny. I didn't go straight into articles after.
Okay. What did you do?
So after university, I went to law school
Okay.
for 6 months.
Okay.
At 6 months, I think on my last
Did you do it with UNISA?
No, I did it with Lead.
Lead, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So after that, I think on my last week, I got an offer for a graduate program.
Okay.
So the graduate program was structured in a way that it was a 3-year program.
Okay.
So it's with a state-owned company.
Okay.
They are an asset management company.
Okay.
So what they do is they place you there. You're there for 3 years. First year you're with them. Second year you get seconded to a law firm. And then third year you come back and then they absorb you and whatnot. But then unfortunately, for us, our cycle was within the COVID time, so we didn't get retained. But anyway, long story short, when I was there, I did my first year there with them. You know, we were in the unlisted investments department. You know, work with private companies, loans, facilities, and investments that the company does through the assets that they manage. And then the second year, we were lucky enough that, you know, you could choose which law firm you want to go to.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, you got the easier side of things.
So, yeah. So, but these were the firms of which they worked with.
Oh, okay.
The firms on their panel, so they had an arrangement. But the LPC had to approve the process.
Okay.
So, you know, but then within your first year, they had to make sure that you do law school. And then after you do law school, you can write your boards if you want, or you can go write your boards while you're doing your articles, you know. So I had already done law school, so I didn't need to do that. You know, I focused on my boards.
Okay. And how were those?
I think each to his own, you know. Some people go in, they write 4 and then they pass. Some people go in, they write 2 and then they still struggle with that. You know, I use the strategy of writing 2 at a time.
Yeah.
And I think I always advise people, write 2 at a time.
Yeah, 2 at a time.
Pair them this way and then, you know, it makes things a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
But if you're confident enough for 4,
go for it.
Go for it, yeah.
Okay.
So, and then, yeah, I did my articles. After finishing my articles, went back. We weren't retained because of the COVID thing happening. So there was a restructure happening. So, yeah, then we were let go. And then I think after that, I was applying for admission. And when I was applying for admission, because I only did 1 year, the LPC objected.
What? For real?
On the basis that...
Okay, no, but one thing they will object, even small comma, they will say, go fix the comma.
So they just raised a query to say, by the way, you didn't complete your articles.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? It's like, remember during COVID, you had that 2 months
at home. We had to account for it.
You have to cover it. I'm like, why didn't you guys inform us at the time? And, you know, because I think there were emails that were sent out to say that they won't object on that basis. So I referred them to that. They're like, no, but you still have to. I'm like, okay. So now I had to go back to the firm, and the firm was like, but the problem is now that they're like, it seems like you had abandoned them at the time. You can't go back and continue. It has to be continuous.
Yeah.
Like, so now I have to withdraw my application for admission.
How did that make you feel?
It did hurt. I won't lie. It really hurt. And now I have to go back and look for a firm to do my articles.
Like from scratch?
Yeah.
No ways.
Oh, technically, it was for 2 months, but obviously, no firm is going to take you for those 2 months.
Obviously.
So I had to find a firm that I could do a year. So I went back. I found a firm. It's the firm that I'm currently at.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
What did that season of your life teach you about you, or just teach you in general about career development?
I think in general, it's more of, anything that you get, you can easily lose. Regardless of how hard you worked for it.
Yeah.
You can easily lose something today. You can have it today, and then by tomorrow, it's gone. I think for me, it's more of, whatever opportunity you get, make the most of it.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, you'll have something to leave with, even if it doesn't get there. But persevering is what's important. You get kicked down. You can't get admitted. You have to go back. Yeah. You go back, and then you do your articles again. Then you get up, and then life goes on, I suppose.
Okay, I hear that. So you applied, how you did your articles the first time, right? You applied for articles, you got into articles via graduate program.
Yeah.
Was there a reason why you were applying for graduate programs, or you were just applying for any role that fit into an LLB?
I think a friend of mine had a bursary with the company.
Okay.
So I think a day before applications closed, this was like in my final year. She told me, hey, by the way, this company, I have a bursary with them. They're looking for graduates for their graduate development program. I was like, what's that? She sends me the post. I was like, oh, okay, I applied. Totally forgot about it. And they called me like 7-8 months later.
Whew. I'm sure I would anymore. Like you're just doing your
the
own
funny
thing.
thing about it is that when they finally got me, it was around May, I think. And the lady was like, we've been trying to call you since Feb.
Really?
Since Feb. I'm like, what do you mean? So I had, Truecaller on my phone.
Yeah.
So there were certain numbers, Truecaller blocks them as spam.
Wow.
Which is funny because that week I deleted the app.
Oh.
And that's how the call actually came through. So,
guys, so maybe you're not getting that interview call because you have Truecaller for wrong reasons. Oh, no. And then maybe just remove Truecaller.
Maybe it was some setting that I did that made me block. I don't know. For some reason, that happened. So.
Yeah, just check your spam calls, hey, because sometimes companies be ghosting. You like it feels like you're not applying or you're not doing anything. Okay. Do you think university prepared you for the workplace? How is the transition?
It's different.
Okay.
I don't think even life itself prepares us for the workplace.
Yeah.
No one tells you that, there'll be some months where you scratch your head and ask yourself, how am I going to make it till next week? How am I going to make it till payday? Or how am I going to be able to withstand the pressure and demands that work comes with? I'm going to speak for practice or law in general, Maybe some other professions is different, but someone once said that it's not just law. Like every profession is as demanding, as law. Like each and every one, they have their own demands, and at the same time, you find yourself facing, different expectations, different challenges, whether it's with work, whether it's with employees, time management, conflicting schedules. It doesn't really matter. For me, I don't think it did because I don't think universities are honest about the realities of the workplace.
Yeah.
Like it's not everything they tell you. You know? They'll teach you like, okay, this is how, a trial procedure works, but they never tell you how the magistrate responds to you addressing him. They don't, you know. And you only realize when you're there that, oh, he can say that, you know, this can happen. You know, when you start talking to your colleagues, oh, this is how colleagues act. But, you know, but it's different from one firm to another, one company to another. I think people learn the hard way, and not having someone to guide you as well is also the danger of it. Is that you don't have a mentor as a student. No one to be brutally honest about, you know, what happens, what are you going to face? You're going to be knocking off late. You're going to be working on weekends. You know, when you get there and your boss like, oh, you must come in this weekend. This weekend.
I've got a social.
I have to go in. No, we have to do this, you know. But, you know, thankfully some firms tell you from the get-go in your interview that, are you okay with working late? Are you okay with working on weekends? I don't think if you say no, it's going to change.
It changes your status with the employer, because they're just like, no, we're not hiring you.
But, you know, those are the realities of it, that you're never ready.
Like,
even if they do warn you, be ready to work late. You know, mentally you'll be fine, but physically you might not be able to, you know, come to terms with, oh, this is my life now. You know, but there are beauties of it as well. And
I mean, I can agree with you, right? I think my stance, right, with work preparation or work readiness, I do feel like there is a disconnect, right? And I think that disconnect starts all the way from high school. So I think even transitioning into university, yes, they will tell us about careers. Yes, they'll tell us about certain things, but I don't think we're fully prepared for the independence that comes with being in university, the options, and just life in university, right? We're not fully exposed to it or fully taught about it. And obviously, there's only so much you can be taught. And then again, I do feel like there's a big disconnect between universities and the workplace. It's almost as if the curriculum is disconnected from what you do when you get to work, right? Like you made an example, you'll get the steps to what a trial looks like, but you don't get nuances in between that. If you miss that 5 days, you could actually compromise your court date. You could have to wait for 3 years, you know. You are not taught about etiquette, you know, how writing a particular email could get you fired or could cost $1 million deal and all of these things. So I really feel like if there was a way, man, that curriculum setters of the university, high school could actually sit down one table and say, you know what, let's create something that creates professionals or individuals that are able to thrive. Because also we do have an influx of people that in their first year of work, they struggle with mental health issues. They struggle with, I know in the profession, a lot of people struggle with alcoholism. I've heard that accountants struggle with white drugs. Like, it's a thing. And some of these things happen not because people want to do it, but it's a thing that I don't know what to do. Like, it's overwhelming. Everything is just looking at me and I just need to deliver. And I think sometimes workplaces can be desensitized to that whole thing that graduates are not familiar. Because it seems as though there's an expectation that we're at a particular standard, but that standard is not taught to us in university. Then it's like, what's going on, you know? So I really hope there will be a change in future. And how were your articles like, both the first time and the second time? What were your highlights?
I think for me, for the first time, I had a bit of difficulties. I never wanted to be a litigation attorney. And during my first one, most of the time I did litigation work, RAF, medical negligence, you know, and that, for me, I wasn't enjoying it. That's a personal thing for me. Because when I started working, I was exposed to the corporate side of things, commercial, you know, I was banking and finance, mergers and acquisitions. And I was like, that's what I want, you know. You know, I want to be an M&A lawyer. I want to be a corporate and commercial lawyer. And then when I went to do articles, I was like, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I doing litigation? You know, then I remember one of the directors told me that, you know, the foundation of every lawyer should be a good understanding of litigation.
I know brilliant commercial lawyers who don't touch litigation, who don't know what court looks like.
So, I heard that. I was like, okay, fine, let's do it. We did it. And then in my second stint of doing articles, I remember I was talking to my boss the other day, and then she started talking about litigation things, and I'm like, what do you know about litigation, as a commercial lawyer? It's like, no, I have an experience in litigation, It's like, you must know litigation to know all these other things. I was like,
it goes back to why you had to do it.
I had to do it. I'm like, okay, no, I understand. It makes sense now. For me, I had a good experience. I'm not even going to lie.
Yeah. You had a time of your life?
Time of my life,
Okay.
I think I've had great bosses or people I reported to and who teach me or taught me all, if not most, of what I know, And, it's not a lot of people who say they take pride in the fact that they found, good bosses who, push them, motivate them, and help them grow, because it's really tough in this profession way, and especially as candidate attorneys, to be able to say, I'm happy at work. So for me, it was a good experience. It was a good journey. I can't complain.
Okay. You speak a lot on mentorship. Why do you think mentorship is important? And to a person out there who's looking to approach someone to be mentored by, how can they do it?
I think it's important because you don't know everything.
Yeah.
And you don't know everyone.
Yeah.
And in our profession, you need to grab a hold of every information, and you need to be able to connect with each and every person you come across. Today I can come here and I'm like, I want to be able to sit down with the Chief Justice. And you're like, oh, I go with that Chief Justice or to church. I'm like, really? I will come to your church,
Yeah.
And because, of that relationship, or if now I'm like, you know what, I'm a student, I'm struggling to get VAC work, I don't know where to go, what should I do? If you have a mentor will be like, oh, no, I have a friend. He has a firm, I can speak to him, you can do your VAC work there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people take for granted the fact about who you know. They always think, getting articles or getting VAC work or getting a job, it's always straightforward. Apply online or apply via email, and that is it. But referrals really do carry a lot of weight. And, and that's, for me, I think every job I got was through that. Someone referred me somewhere, and then I just sent my CV, and I just ended up getting a job, And that's just usually how life is these days. You just need to be able to connect with people. Someone refers you, you qualify. You'll qualify. But if you don't qualify, then that's too bad.
Have something to work
like
with.
You say, okay, are you qualified? Do you have experience in this? Yes. Okay, then apply there. I'll put in a good word, or apply there. I'll write you a motivation letter or character reference letter. And I think, and then finding a mentor, it's easier than what people think.
Okay.
My first mentor was assigned to me, when I did my grad program. Like every graduate had a mentor assigned to them. And she's still my mentor today. Lovely woman, very brilliant mind. And we have access to a lot of platforms these days. You have LinkedIn, you have Instagram, you attend social networking events, and those are platforms or places which it's easy for you to, engage with people. You'll go on Twitter and you see someone tweeting about law and it's funny. That's so funny. Go to their DMs. Hey, that was so funny. By the way, I'm looking for him. Easy.
Yeah.
You go to a networking event, talk to someone. Hey, I see. What kind of things are you into? No, I'm into golf, or I'm into soccer. I'm also into, we should play sometime. You play. By the way, I'm a student. Can I get mentorship from you? It can't be that hard.
Yeah.
I think people make it hard because they try to avoid the awkwardness of being rejected.
True.
And it's okay. How many attorneys are there, or how many advocates are there?
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be serious about approaching them, you can DM or send a message request on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
5 per week. Best believe within a month, someone will
Who's gonna respond?
And it's not, because the problem is I think people always want to go for the same people.
Yes.
mentorship.
Or the popular people
or the popular
as
ones,
well.
like someone who's like, that person.
Like,
and
advocate, I don't.
Yeah, it's not possible.
Yeah.
And he's not going to mentor everyone at the same time. Already in his chambers, he has people who he's mentoring doing pupils. So he can't have everyone under his wing. But, go for that junior attorney, go for that, junior counsel who just started. They have a lot to offer you more than you already know. Like you at university level, you probably might not know as much as they do, and they have a lot to offer you. They can have a lot to give you, tips on how to get into the bar, tips on how to pass the exams, tips on how to get briefs, or from an attorney, tips on how to secure articles, how to secure vacation work, boards and whatnot. It can't be that hard. People want to make it harder than it is,
Okay. Says an introvert. Because sometimes the excuse you hear, I'm an introvert. And I refuse to believe that being an introvert is an excuse of not being able to articulate or express or communicate what you'd like from the next person, or just even your ideas or your interests. Because I think people do tend to hide behind that and say, oh no, I'm an introvert, and etc. And I think one thing that I would recommend, guys, when we go to corporate events, don't go there just for content, right? And I think it's said that you will come out of an event with brilliant minds, brilliant opportunities, and all you have are videos and pictures. That can't be your life. When you go to every event, know how to sell yourself. I think Tibelo says you must have a 1-minute elevator pitch, or even 30 seconds. So with me, every time you meet me, you would know that I do Employment Wednesdays. You would know that I'm a lawyer. You would know that I specialize in labor law within that short space of time. So find a way of engaging people in a manner that exposes what you do, and also be interested in what other people do. And know how to sell your skills. And sometimes it's not about directly asking for a job. You can easily be like, oh, I saw you run Employer Lawyer on Instagram. Would you like somebody to help you manage the social media? Or I have this tip. Then when you start working with that person, they will know that, oh, this is an LLB student. Actually, there is VEC work somewhere down the road. Or somebody is looking for someone. So don't take for granted those events that you go to. Make sure that you utilize them to your level best. And again, when it also comes to mentorship, I think I believe in I call it modern mentorship, right? So I don't have like a physical mentor, but I have a lot of digital mentors. So I observe how they do things and their principles, and I often engage them on social media. So then I'd comment on their stuff or send a DM like, hey, last year you posted this, I actually tried it out, thank you so much. Or hey, I see on your LinkedIn there's this, can I know more about it? But sometimes it doesn't have to be so physical that we need to sit down and go for coffee, or we need to do ABCD. You can literally learn from people by observing them. And I think we live in an era where social media is a great tool if you use it accordingly. Like, you have advocates that respond to DMs. Judges have Instagrams and all of that. So shoot your shot, but obviously appropriately, respectfully, and politely. And like Junior said, that there is no way if you are sending 5 people DMs every other week, nobody will respond to you. Somebody one day is going to be like, oh yes, you know what, I'm going to put you on, or this is what I'm going to do for you. And sometimes, guys, it's not just about taking. Have something to offer. You can't just have a mentor that you observe, not because you want a job or you want a brief, but just having that person, because sometimes people want to hire you or people want to sit with you because you are known by a particular individual. You hear people say, oh no, I saw you shot an episode with Juniors. It's fine, I'll come. And that time they don't know anything about the podcast or the platform. Just because they saw you sit with me and they trust your judgment and your character, they're like, okay, this is something that would like to be part of. So keep that in mind when you go about mentorship and networking. And then why did you decide to start Employer a Lawyer? Where did that come from? And what was the idea behind it?
I don't think it was a conscious decision.
Okay.
It was around about the time when I was doing my grad program. And you still had like friends from university who are like, hey man, I'm still looking for a job. I'm still looking for a job. If you see vacancies, please send. I'm like, no, I'll hook you up. And another person says the same thing.
Yeah.
I see you in Gauteng. If you hear anything, please send. So I started a small group. It was just for, friends and varsity mates. And to say, guys, let's use this group to share vacancies. If anyone sees anything, send it here. And then they started asking, can you please send the link so I can invite my friend? Can you add my friend? 1, 2, 3. And I decided, okay, let me just go post it on Twitter so everyone can see.
Yeah.
I posted it on Twitter. Then more people came. I think it was at the time when WhatsApp used to limit the number of people in the group. So I created another group. And then from one group, I think in a month or so, we ended up with like 14 groups.
Yo, hectic.
So we had one for Gauteng and we had one for Limpopo as well. So we separated the two. And then as time went on, I think in the beginning it was more of, you know what, this is just for vacancies, hence the name.
Yeah.
And going forward, the group started growing and coming out of control. People were sending their own businesses, adverts, and all these other things. Chain messages, links to free airtime. So it was annoying.
Groups are so annoying sometimes.
So we decided, you know what? Let's create an Instagram page and a Twitter page.
Yeah.
And then we'll stop posting in groups, and then we'll post on Instagram and Twitter. And then, got one follower. That was me. So,
wow.
And then I think we started growing slowly and slowly, So whenever we'd get vacancies, we'd post them. Get vacancies, post, get vacancies, post, get vacancies, post. And then I remember I had a conversation with a couple of my friends, and we're talking about, I wonder what it is or how it feels like to be a candidate attorney. Light bulb. Maybe we should have an episode, like a live. But before that, I used to do lives on my personal account, but just silly stuff. You just go there, just talk to people. You just pick people's minds and whatnot. People just started asking questions about law. I'm like, maybe this should be what we're posting on the page. We started doing information, like your legal information. What is a candidate attorney? What's an advocate? What's a what? What's the difference? What are the types of things? And eventually grew to our first episode where we had, I think the first episode, we had a graduate recruitment manager from one of the big 5 law firms.
Oh, nice.
It was a very beautiful episode, lovely lady. And from then on, we started going to different disciplines of law, candidate attorney, advocate, and whatnot. So, and then it grew becoming a thing. And, we started saying maybe we should branch out into these things, focus on not just employment, but also legal education. Or, providing students with resources. One thing led to another. We got a DM, someone asked, how can I get a mentor from one of you guys? Okay, let's start a mentorship program, and then we started with people who approached us personally. Okay, you have 2 mentors, I have 2, let's put them in there. And then let's put out, an advert to say we're looking for mentees, and then we do a mentorship program. People apply, do the whole process, and I think at the time we had like 30 mentees in the program, and as every year goes by, we take new, others graduate, and then it's a cycle, and then I think that's how we started growing, or that's how employer lawyers started off and just started branching into different, fields of what branches in that case. I think we'll be hitting 5 years next month.
Oh, love that.
Yeah.
What has been your highlight of Employ a Lawyer?
I think there have been a lot, one of them is being featured by Dorebus.
Okay.
That was quite the highlight.
That's great.
For the work we do,
Yeah.
And another one would be we got invited to facilitate the Law Society's annual general meeting.
Oh, that's
This was
brilliant.
2023, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, that was also one of the great. And then my biggest highlight for me personally was having a magistrate on our Instagram.
Oh, okay. That's you need to put me on after.
So for me, that was quite the highlight. But also, I think another one. But although it won't come to life, I once approached someone who was doing what is it called? Judge's clerkship.
Oh, yeah, Concord.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that person was under the clerkship of former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo.
Wow.
So when I was
That would have been a hit.
Yeah. So when I was telling him about it, he was like, "No, I have to pass it by him first." And when he did, unfortunately, somehow it didn't happen due to schedules and workloads.
Yeah.
But at the back of my head, I was like, Justice Chief Raymond Zondo knows about us.
Yes.
So we're like, okay, that's something,
Yeah,
So,
it is something.
So yeah, it was quite the moment.
Okay. Since it is Men's Mental Health Month, how do you keep your mental health in check, and how would you recommend the next guy out there keeps theirs in check?
I think for me, it's extracurricular activities or activities outside of work. That's number one. I used to jog, but I stopped jogging.
Why did you stop? We are doing comrades. Now you are
I didn't have time. The problem is you wake up very early in the morning, you knock off at 10.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're working on weekends. When are you going to do that?
Yeah.
So the routine kind of stopped. So I resorted to soccer. I play soccer. Still play soccer.
Nice.
And, that kept me sane. I remember I have days where I'm not okay, but I'm like, the only thing I could actually clear my mind is soccer. The only thing I need right now is soccer. It's like you go into a different world when you're doing something you love other than work, of course. And it just clears your mind. You forget about everything else and you just focus on the beauty of it. And number two would be a great support system. I think I have a very, good circle of people around me who support me and without judgment, of course. You tell them, I'm going through this. They give you the good advice. They support you. They're there for you through it. You can do this. You can do that. And that, I think, it kind of works. But most importantly is having male, like as a man, most important is having male support system.
Yeah.
It's people who are like, I understand what you're going through because I'm also going through it, or I went through it. It's someone who doesn't just give you advice from a general perspective, but they give you from this is what we face as men. This is what happens. These are the pressures of societies. These are the pressures from family and whatnot, work. How do you handle all these things? And, if you get to sit down with someone who will tell you, man, you're not overreacting. Like what you're feeling, is not just hallucinations. It's actually happening. And, I understand you. I hear you. And, I validate your feelings. You have feelings. You're a man. But at the end of the day, you're a human. People will say, men don't cry, men don't. But it's not how we're supposed to look at it.
Yeah.
That's how we're pushing people into corners that we're never going to recover from. That's why we push them into, high suicidal statistics because we think you're strong enough. Walk it off, You go to your friend, man, I'm going through 1, 2, 3. You're stressed, yeah, let's go drink. No, man. Like, it's okay to drink sometimes or do whatever. But at the end of the day, in the morning when you wake up with that hangover, let's talk.
Yeah.
Like, what was the problem? What were you saying yesterday? We got that out the way, we got the doing whatever, but now let's focus on the problem. What's the problem, man? How can I help? Who do I need to call? Who do I need to confront with this? I think we all need that, like that person who will bring you down to earth and not just say it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like you need someone who's saying, cut those people out of your life. Stop doing that. Focus on, and put you in line. Because if no one's going to put you in line, you're going to find yourself being astray. And by the time it's going to be too late, or might not be too late, but difficult for you to come back to the route where you're supposed to be. And that's the sad reality of things, is that we don't have enough people to tell us the truth. We don't have enough people to be honest with us, especially as men. We like sugarcoating things. And I'll talk to him. I talk to him. You get there, you talk about soccer, you talk about money and whatnot. But the bigger picture, we're not focusing on it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I guess the big part of it is just finding a space that you can be safe in and be vulnerable and honest in. We close off the Youth Month. What are your hopes for the youth of South Africa, and what is the season of your life?
Hopes for the youth of South Africa. Low employment rate.
Okay.
I think that's that's all I advocate for. And sometimes it's just for youth to take matters into their own hands. We have a government, yes. We have law organizations, yes, but they can't do everything for us. At some point, we need to take matters into our own hands. Create initiatives that address employment. Create initiatives that develop the youth. That kind of creates a space to allow other youth to express themselves enough to reach other people. I remember the other day we were having one of our Lawyer Social Unwind, and you get people approach like, yeah, no, man, I started doing my articles because of you guys. I started doing this because of you guys. Oh, thank you for this. You did this, you did that, And I think that's what we're all destined to be. By the end of the day, regardless of what you get from the world, you need to give back.
Yeah.
It always has to go back. It might not be in an equal amount, but you need to give back.
Yeah.
The people around you, the people who support you, who teach you, who pave a way from you. If you can't give back to them, give back to others who are coming behind you. I always say to people, always pay it forward. Like, regardless of what it is, whether it's in your career, whether it's in life, it's in church, it's in relationships, friendship, always pay it forward. There's always someone out there who has their hand open and they're waiting for you to just put your hand on them and then put them on. And what is this part of my life? That's a very tricky one.
Okay.
I think I'd like to say it's contentment.
Ooh, love that.
And for various reasons. I've always been reaching, for the next best mark, for the next best job, for the next best what, and I think after admission, I reached a point where I'm like, all those years you've been crying about, when will I get there? Are my admission delayed or whatnot? You can calm down now. Like, you can stop stressing. I'm not in a rush to do your notaries and whatnot. I think I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, I'm living my ancestors' dreams, and it's something which I think when my parents and my family, friends, when they look at it, like, he really deserves the contentment he's in. He really deserves, the happiness and the peace that comes with it. So yes, sometimes we work late. Yes, sometimes we work weekends. But that's the beauty of it. It's something that we chose. We said we want to do, and I'm never in a position where I'm shying away from talking about how far I've come. I've never been in a position where I can be like, I regret the path I chose, regardless of all the hurdles and speed bumps or whatever in the way. I'm still grateful and I'm so happy with where I am. And I wish for more people to also be happy with where they are. I remember a cousin of mine once said that if you're not happy with where you are, you'll always be looking at where you need to be. Then you'll never be able to experience that moment you're in. The beauty of it. I have a roof, my head, I have clothes. I don't go to bed hungry. And it's a good feeling. It's a good state to be in. It's a good part of my life.
Okay, I love that. What a time to be you, Contentness. Thank you so much for honoring my invite. We've come to the end of the episode. Always moves by fast, ne?
Yeah, it does. It feels like we've been talking for 15 minutes.
To everybody at home, happy Employment Wednesdays. Do not forget to use the thank you options. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. See you on the next episode.